Hello, in this presentation we will take a look at the general formatting options for a balance sheet within QuickBooks Online. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in the QuickBooks Online dashboard. We will be continuing with the Get Great Guitars problem. We're going to take a look at the balance sheet once again, this time focusing in on those options for formatting. In order to do that, we're going to go back to the reports on the left side. And if we're in frequently run reports, which will be the default most times, we would see the balance sheet pretty soon because the balance sheet is a report that we will probably be running most frequently. If it's not there, we can type it up here and put in the balance sheet and it will then auto-populate. We will select the balance sheet. We're going to change that date range once again from 01/01/21 to 02/28/21. That's January 1st, 2021 to February 28th, 2021. It's not going to work until we run that report. Now note once again that we're going to be working in a problem in the future. If we haven't yet put any data into the system, that's okay. We'll just go over the end component. This is what's going to be there at the end of our process. And then we'll come back and we'll be able to run these reports again and we'll see that information populate. So we're really seeing what's going to happen after we enter the data. Then we'll enter the data. Then we'll run these reports again. All the formatting options will be very similar for all these reports. Note we have a date range for the balance sheet, even though the balance sheet is as of a point in time. That is typically going to be so that we can select this item and drill down on this information for a transaction report. And it also affects the different type of customization options we will have for the report. Now, if we want to select and change some of the formatting of this report, then one place we can go, the main place we can go, is to the customize option up here. Note we have some customizing that will be in the mostly in the general area, as we will see in this customize, just this outer section as well. So here, of course, we have the customize option here. That's going to be if we want some other date range, then these will be the most common. If we just want the day, this week, this week to date, this month to date. If we select these, it'll give us the current information in accordance with those items and just select that date range. Now, of course, because we are working with a problem that is not standard, we're working in some other date range rather than a current date, then we have to customize every time. So we put in a customized range here, and anytime you just start putting in the dates, it will then auto fill to custom dates on this side. Then we have the display columns. If we select the drop down, we have days, weeks, months, quarters. This will actually, within this report, because it's a balance sheet showing just a point in time, if we select these different items, it'll often change it to, so if we select months, for example, then we often will, and we run that report with the months, then it'll often change the 1 month to 2 months. So what it did is we have 2 months selected here. So it's saying, well, you must want the month end then of each of those months. So it took January's month end and February month end. So it took the range of data that we selected here and it broke out in chunks in accordance with the time frames we selected here, in this case those being months. If we select the weeks, then of course it'll do a similar type of activity. If we run that report, we should get it broken out by week. So of course we have a lot more data. We've got each week for the months of January and February, and we can do some comparison. Each of these weeks is as of a point in time as of the end of each week. So that's what that information is going to do to this particular report. We can do that, of course, years, quarters, and whatnot. We're going to go back to the total and run that report. Then we have the active rows and columns. If we select this item, it's going to say show all rows that are active versus all rows versus non-zero. This is a really useful setting here because if there's any activity within the report, even if it's a zero balance and we say active, it'll show us that activity. So for example, if we scroll through here, we have this zero balance. Typically in the desktop version, that would not appear here, it would just be gone. And the great thing is that when it does appear, is that if there is activity, because it's active over this date range, even though it's zero, we can select that item and we can see the data that's happening. So we can get that transaction report very easily by showing that item. I'm going to scroll back up top and go back to the report. And if we scroll back up, then if we select this item again, if we were to say all, then it's going to pick up the stuff that's active and the stuff that we haven't used at all for that date range. Probably not one we want much because it might have a lot of zeros there, zero accounts that will be involved, zero accounts that have no activity and are no use to us. If we want to remove them, all the zero accounts, which we probably would if we were to give the report to an outside user, we could say we want everything that's non-zero and run that report, and then that should go down and we shouldn't see any more zeros in this column. So that's going to be some useful features. It is nice to have this default to have the actives when you're jumping back and forth from the report so that you can see the detail. Next we have the select period item. If we select this, we'll first take a look at these items down here, and then we'll go down to the previous period and previous years. We have the percentage of rows. Because we only have the singular rows here, that's not going to be very interesting, so we'll look at that at a later report. If we take a look at the percentage of columns and run that report, we're going to run that report, percentage of columns, then we'll get our percentage column on the right side. And the percentages can give us a nice measurement when we're comparing to other types of companies that are similar in nature but different in size. For example, if we're talking about a different company that does the same thing we do, we sell guitars, but they're a lot bigger than we are, then we couldn't really compare our cash as related to how much cash they have because the comparison might not be useful. But the comparison of our total cash holdings in relation to the total assets could be something comparable. So in this case, if we were to say that we had our calculator here, we're saying that cash is 98,995.56. What percentage of that is our total? Is it of our total investment? I'm going to scroll back down to the total assets down here. And so we're going to say our total assets divided by 228,389.56. And that's 43.4334. Which if we move the decimal 2 places would be 43.35. And so that's going to be our 43.35. So if we were to compare it to some other company, we could say, yeah, our cash is about 43%, our accounts receivable is about 5%, and see if that's comparable to other companies. So I'm going to unselect that. I'm going to unselect this item, and we'll run that report. That'll take us back here. Now the other items are a little tricky to look at. If you say we want the previous period, what we're saying is we want a comparison to the previous period. In order to do that, we need to select a current period, a current like month in our case, and then select the previous period. So I'm going to change the date range here. I'm going to make this for the month. We'll make it 02/01/21. So it's February 1st, 2021 to February 28th, 2021. So we're going to run that report. So this is as of February, running for February. Same date down here, but now up here we're telling it that it's just for that month of February. And the reason it's the same date down here is because it's a point in time. But now we're really trying to tell QuickBooks to give us 2 time periods as a comparison. And so we want it to just take this current months of data. Then we'll select this and we'll go to the previous period and we will run that report. And it'll give us as of February 28th and then as of January 31st. It gives us the current month first. So we get this comparison of the 2 date periods. And again, the reason it does that is because we're saying as of the end of the second month, and then we said pull into the prior period, the previous period, and that's going to give us January and February. If we continue with this, if we select this drop down again, if we want the change in dollar amount, we select the change in dollar amount and we run that report, then it's going to take the difference between those 2 months and it'll give us what the difference is in dollars. So now we've got the difference between February and January. In terms of the checking account is $4,654. In terms of the accounts receivable and so on, we have the change in dollars. We can also get the percentage change. So that's going to give us the change in dollars. If we select this one more time and we select the percentage change and run that report. Let's do that once again. It jumps down there sometimes. Then we're going to get the percentage change. And once again, the change in dollars is really important for us. We can see, okay, that's, you know, a significant dollar change, but we might not be able to compare it to a company of different size, even if it's the same industry. So what we could compare then is the percentage change, and that's calculated as we take the difference. So we took 98,995.56 minus the 94,341.14 or 17 gives us the change, the 4,654.39, and then we're going to divide that by the first period, this number here, this 94,341.17, and that's going to be, if we move the decimal 2 places to the right, a 4.93 increase from January to February. So that gives us our percentage change. That's really useful, again, comparing different companies of different sizes, and especially. So I'm gonna take this back off. I'm gonna unselect that, and many of those types of options that we looked at are in the display option on the desktop version. Then we're gonna go back to this customize field here and see a couple more. Oh, one more thing here. We got the cash versus accrual toggle. Now, this gives us a quick jump between the cash and accrual. It's not perfect, however, because QuickBooks is going to be run not by, theory rules, meaning, when should revenue be recognized? It should be recognized when we earn the revenue. When can QuickBooks recognize revenue? It's going to do it by getting triggered in some way, and that we have to tell it what point are you going to recognize register at or revenue at. And typically revenue will be recognized when we create an invoice. And that's going to be basically the accrual method for QuickBooks. And if we select the cash method, then it's going to recognize revenue when cash is leaving or going into the company. So it's not a perfect transaction, but it gives us, if we know how QuickBooks is moving between these two items, we can go to these two items and it'll give us a quick change, which is really nice because we can see kind of a cash flow statement versus an accrual statement. Okay, now we're going to look at the customized items. There's a few more items within the general area up top in the customized items. Some of them are going to be the same, including the date range. We saw this over here, so we have this item in the dates. So here's the drop down, the custom dates. If it was the current time period, we can select the current month or the current year, or we can select a custom date range. We have our cash versus accrual toggle. And then we have a couple items we haven't seen before. We've got the divide by 1,000. Why would you want to do that? Because you might, if you're talking about a large numbers, if you're talking about millions or billions, if you're talking about millions or hundreds of thousands, you might want, the ratio will be the same if we lose some zeros. So it might be easier to look at a form by dividing by 1,000. So we can select this and divide by 1,000. If we divide by 1,000, we probably don't want to see pennies. It makes no sense to have cents included if we're looking at the report by thousands. So we'd probably want to select that item too. And then we can also represent the negative numbers. A lot of people like to see negative numbers with brackets. This is kind of unusual to me to see it like that, but brackets is very common for me to see negative numbers that way. We could also show them in red if we so choose to really let them stand out. And so if we select that, we're going to say run that report. Then we'll see a lot smaller numbers, and we'll just have to note here, of course, that these numbers are in thousands. And so there we have this items, and the negative numbers are bracketed. and in red. So those are some of our items that we can change through the display. We've got a lot of options to really format this balance sheet in some customized ways.